Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I've finished this beautiful image by Luan from her new book Anime Doodle Girls Volume 3. Let's have a look. So guys, I'm back. I did do a live video colouring in the Stargazer lilies on this image last week, so if you want to check that out, it is in full detail and I use Copics and Prismacolors, so I've got the link in the description below for that as well. So I had some issues with the other image and I decided just to start it again using just Prismacolors because people seemed to want more info on the Prismacolors than they did the Copics, so I've just redone it just in the Prismacolor pencil. So I'm using the first color now just to put in the details on the flower. So I'm not going to go into detail here because we did do the live video and there's a lot of detail in that live video. So if you really want to go back and have a look at that, by all means do that, because then you'll get a little bit more info, I guess, on it, and we go into depth and it's real time as well. So this one I've sped up to 2 times the speed, so it's not too fast, but it is a little bit faster than normal, obviously. If we had it to full speed, the video would have been 2 hours long, and it does take a lot of time to edit and voice record 2 hours worth of video, so we've cut it down to an hour today for you, so you can still get some information out of it and some color conversions and things like that as well. So what I will do is I'll pop the other pencil conversions up. I'm not going to put Copic markers up there because I didn't use them. It's a lot harder for me to go back towards the Copic marker color than it is for me to match these other colors, so I won't be doing a Copic marker conversion, but obviously you can still see the Copic version of the flower in that first video. So first of all, I'm using my black cherry and I'm going in and lining out all of the middle areas that I did in the first image. So Jenny's book is now for sale, so make sure that you've popped over and checked that out. There was a quick flip through done on her website, so you can check out her Facebook page and you'll be able to see the flip through of that. Also, Jenny has a YouTube channel as well, so there'll be a most likely the flip through will be on there, so I'll pop the links in the description below there as well, and if you want to purchase the book I'll pop the Amazon link there as well. So I'm going to use some lavender next to go over the top of that dark that black cherry, I should say. My pencil's actually really blunt, so I'm just going to sharpen it and then we're going to move on and do this. So I'm going to fill out a fair bit of the flower petals using this one, just going over the top of the previous color there and also coming out towards the edges, and I'm just sort of leaving the middle section of each of those flowers sort of petals white so that we can fill in some of that lighter color. So I really enjoyed doing this image, and I enjoyed being part of the book launch event for Jenny as well. As I said before, make sure you check out all the links in the description because there's heaps of information in there about Jenny and also about my channel, and any social media links and things like that I'm going to put down there as well. So make sure you check it out. If you haven't seen any of my videos before, make sure you go check out some of those live videos because there's heaps of information in them. At the moment we're doing a grayscale image from Caran. We've just done a Jenny Luan one, and I'll be doing a couple more as the year progresses as well, so you'll be able to get heaps of real-time information and lots of tips and tricks during those videos as well, so make sure you do check them out. If you want, you can click on the little bell and you'll get notifications when I do upload new videos also. So I'm just going to continue on with this lavender. I've nearly finished it now. I'm kind of using medium to light pressure, and I'm making sure I release that pressure as I go further out towards the edge of the flower, just so that the next color will go over the top of it nice and neatly, and we won't have to see that defined line between the two colors there on the page. So I've got a little bit of I've got mulberry there. I'm going to put in some of that in just into the edges and the very crease edges of the flower, so just down the middle seam there I've gone on either side of that, and also I'm just putting a little bit in the very middle of the flower and a little bit on the tip of the flower as well. So I'm just going to go back in with that black cherry and just deepen up those middle sections and make those lines a little bit sharper so that you can see them come up and through the middle of the flower a little bit better. So just putting fairly firm pressure in there just to get that nice and sharp so you can see that middle section, which is nice and deep and dark in the middle. So I'm just going to grab that mulberry again, and I'm just going to go back in and just deepen up those areas that I did, putting a little bit more pressure in now, and I want to make those areas a little bit darker. And also I'm just adding a little bit of this to the shadow areas of each of those petals as well. So you'll notice I ended up leaving out the Dahlia purple this time round. I didn't feel that we actually needed it once I've used that mulberry in there. So these ones might be a little bit purpley pink maybe than the other ones might have been purple. But it doesn't really matter. I guess I just wanted to show you that as long as you've got those few different colours there to differentiate between the different sections of the flower, that you'll still be okay. So I'm using Deco Pink now just to go over the very edge there, and I'm just leaving that very sort of middle section of those petals almost white, and I'm going to come back in with the white pencil. We're going to flatten off the rest of the tooth on this and just smooth off the rest of the flower. So I'm just going to go in now with the white. I'm going to make sure I go down beside the middle section of the flower to give that a little bit more of a highlight there on the very middle section, and then I'm going to go on the very edge of them and just smudge out the rest of this color and get it nice and clean and soft with the tooth being flattened out now. So when I swapped over to do the entire thing with Prismacolor, I actually swapped over papers as well. I have got paper that's got a little bit more tooth than the paper I was using before. So the paper before I was using the Nina Classic Crest paper, which is awesome for markers and pencil, is why I just sort of, you know, had that one on that one there. But for this one I decided to use my actual pencil paper. I'm using the quill board paper for this one. All of the details of other paper that's similar to this is in the description, but you could still use the Nina Classic Crest. But because the image, something happened to that image, I couldn't actually finish the remainder of it on that paper. So while I was printing it out again, I put it on the actual paper I use for pencil. So I've just been brushing away the dust with my dust brush there, which is just a nice big soft paintbrush that I found. This actually happened to be my Nana's, so that's why I'm using it. But I just wanted to say that with that section with the white there, if you find that some of those colours aren't sort of blending in, you've got too much of a defined line between the lighter and the darker colour, just come back in over the top with those colours again, just to strengthen up those shadows and to really make those highlights pop out a little bit more. So I'm using the black cherry again just down the middle because I've got some of the white on that and I really wanted those to pop out of the image. Now I was going to use a black pen and go in and put some dots in, but I decided still to to use the black cherry for the little spots on the leaves, but I've just had to make sure that that's nice and sharp to cut through that white again, because the white is sitting sort of on top of the rest of the tooth now. It's going to be sort of a little bit harder for me to put in these dots over the top, so I'm just sort of made that nice and sharp, and I'm just sort of I guess sort of putting little circular motions on some sections to make them a little bit bigger and a little bit deeper, so you can see those quite clearly. Some of them are lines and some of them are dots. So now we want to put some detail into those little stamen sections. I've got the Spanish yellow, and I'm just going in and popping that in the top section of each of those little stamen twigs things that are coming out the middle there. I'm going to use some spring green in the remainder of the little stem parts of them, so I'm just going in over the top of that now. So I'm going to use this colour in the leaves, the remainder of the leaves on the plants there. So I'm just going to go in and mark out in the middle section of each of these leaves, so down the middle. So we're now continuing on from the flower section. So this is the part, if you were following along on the other one, this is the section that you'll be going from. So I'm just coming up the middle of each of those leaves just to create a little bit of depth in the middle sections, and I'm also going to put this on the little headpiece there hanging on the side of her face. So just putting a little bit of this on each of the top sections to make those top parts there, and the stems, just to make those top sections there look a little bit deeper and like they're actually grooving inwards. So I'm going to use some chartreuse next to go over the top of that and just extend this a little bit further out. I'm going to leave a very edge of each of those leaves for the yellow chartreuse as well, so we're going to make sure there's still a little bit left there. I have used fairly firm pressure here because I wanted to push down the rest of the tooth on that as well. So we're going to do the cross next. I'm going to use some terracotta and do some of the darker areas. So just going underneath some of these shadow areas here first. Just putting a little bit of texture in by keeping the lines so it looks a little bit like wood. I've got the sienna brown next, and I'm doing the same thing, just going over it and increasing the amount of lines that I put in there to show that texture of wood. And now I'm bringing in some burnt ochre over the top of that. So just keeping those lines. So I wanted the texture of wood. I probably could have put some knots and things like that in, but I've just left it as lines. I'm going to actually make that quite light and blend that off with a light colour. So I'm using beige sienna here. So I've just gone over and softened that off, but I want a little bit more depth around her hand where she's holding it. So I've just gone back in with those darker colours and just re-gone over those, just to sort of accentuate that shadow area. I'm using a little bit of white to soften off the tooth through in the middle of those lines that I've done. And I've got the Caran blender just to soften off the remainder of the tooth without pushing too much around and smudging all that in like one colour. I still just wanted to have a little bit of the texture there on the edges and through the middle there. So the Caran full blender is it is a wax-based pencil, and it's very, very similar to what we're using now. It's a little bit softer, but I find that it helps with smudging and things like that as well. So I'm just coming in now to start the skin. She's going to have a pinky textured face, so I'm using mahogany red for the shadows, and I'm doing really light pressure here just to mark in those shadow areas. Not pushing too hard, but just sort of marking around all of the areas where I think there would be a bit of a shadow on her face, including her neck and hands and things like that as well. So just wanted to come back to that full Caran full blender. I did have it in a Derwent pencil extender because it's a tiny, tiny little piece of colourless blender now, and I didn't want you guys to get confused because it did say Derwent on the side of it, but I used the Derwent extender to help me hold it. So just coming into the neck area now and down and around, there'll be a fair bit of shadow here, but you're not going to be able to see all of this because once I start to go over with the lighter colours, I do need to go back in and deepen these shadows up. So we're just marking them out for now. So I'm going to repeat the same that we did just before. I'm just going to make these areas a little bit larger, and I'm using some henna now to go over the top of that. So henna is a little bit of a reddish pinkish color. That's really technical, isn't it? But I'm just going over the top of that previous color and extending this further out. Now I'm going to be softening a lot of this off with the lighter colors, but I do end up having to go back in with some of those darker colors at the end because I felt that the skin was a little bit too washed out. So don't be afraid to put some shadows in here, just don't push down yet, just make sure you keep light pressure to start with. So I've got the burnt ochre again, and I'm going to come in over the top of this colour here and just pop this one in as well. So this is a little bit more orange, so it's putting a little bit of orange tone into the skin as well. Just building up until we make this area that's white full of colour. So we're going to gradually build inwards towards the lightest colour in the middle. I'm also marking out cheekbones and things like that in here now as well, so that we can create a little bit of depth and dimension in the face too. So we're going to start to build up the lighter colours now. So I'm starting with peach first. I'm going to go over the top of the previous colour, and we're going to extend this further out. So most of the skin area will be covered over now. There'll only be a very, very small white area now for the very highlight colour. You can see now that there's still plenty of tooth left on that paper, even though the camera is slightly smoother anyway, but you can still see those little white flecks through that skin color because we haven't pushed any pressure down, and we're just sort of layering over the top of the previous colors here just to get that all marked out. And then we're going to put some pressure down and make these a little bit more permanent and a little bit darker as well, and get rid of some of that tooth on the page. So now I'm swapping out to that light peach color, and I'm just going over the top of everything here. So over the top of the light areas in the middle, and also out towards those dark areas as well. And I'm putting in medium pressure now because I want to start to cover up some of this tooth of the paper. And we're almost finished creating our color for the skin. I want to put a little bit of yellow tone through, so I've got eggshell here, and I'm going over the top of all of these sections again as well. So we're trying to sort of soften off the skin a little bit, make it a little less pink and a little bit more with that yellow tone. So I'm going to finish it off with white, and I'm going to do the exact same thing with the face skin as well. We're going to use the same colors. I just sort of wanted to get this bottom section done here to show you how to use those colors through, and we're going to use the same in the face as well. So we're going to need to go back in with the darker colors and really put in some more shadows in this behind the hand and things like that, because it's all softened off too much now, and we want really some nice deep rich dark colors in there. So I'm going to go back in with those darker colors and make this all a little bit darker in those shadow areas. So I've got the burnt ochre just going underneath the face first there. I've got the henna and coming in over the top. So just going in and creating some more lines through here with these colours. So you can see just by adding that in, we're starting to sort of push them forward a little bit and bring those shadow areas back more. Just swapping between some of those darker and lighter colours there just to soften off the edge of that shadow. I'm using the Caran Full Blender now again because I didn't want to get rid of or lighten up that colour. I just wanted to sort of spread that out a little bit and soften off the very edge of it. So the Caran Blender just smudges it out and softens off the very edge so it doesn't look like a direct line that's sitting in there. I will go over this again and again just until I get the right look that I'm looking for as well. So still using the henna here just to define the hand apart from the shoulder, and also darken up the shadows in the fingers and things as well. So you can see the Caran Blender is not taking off that colour, it's just kind of smudging off the edge of it a little bit so that it's not quite so defined and it looks a little bit more natural. So the little silver thing that I'm using here is actually the mono eraser, so I'm just using that to make sure that I've got a fair bit of that colour out of there, so later on when I come in with that pencil, the next colour for the necklace or whatever, there's still plenty of room in there to put that colour in. So just using that eraser to colour out of or get rid of the colour in those white areas. So we're going to do the exact same thing with the face. So I'm coming in now with the light peach and I'm going over everything. So I'm doing medium pressure and we're starting to flatten off the tooth. I've just realised that I've gone into the hair there a little bit, so I just wanted to rub that off so that it was nice and clean. I have to do it again anyway, but I like to sometimes just get rid of it so I don't accidentally colour over it later on. So the next colour I used was the eggshell, so we're going to go over the top of the skin with the eggshell now. So over everything, including those dark shadow areas. And then I'm going in with the white just to soften off the rest of the tooth and make sure that I have a nice flat surface there. We're going to have to go back in again with those dark colours because we've really softened them off, and we want them to stand out because it will actually make our lighter colours stand out more by having those darker areas. So just erasing some of that colour off the hair again. We're going to use some yellows through there in a little while. So we're going to go in with these darker colours again. So I'm going to start with henna, just going in and really deepening up these shadow lines. I'm going to smudge them out with that Caran blender again, just so that I don't soften them off too much with the lighter colours. So some of the skin on the bottom of the face wasn't quite softened off enough. There was still a fair bit of tooth coming through, so I just wanted to go back in with the white just to really soften off the skin. So we're actually flattening out the tooth at the moment. So let's go back in with the henna and just deepen up some shadows again. Oops, almost used white, but we want the Caran blender again, so I'm coming in with there. I will have to go back in again after I finish this off and come back the next day. I still feel that it wasn't dark enough, so I actually will use the henna and then the peach again to make those areas a little bit wider as well as darker. So before I do any more, I want to darken up these lashes again. So I'm using black to do that. I'm just going back in to line that out and make sure that I flick out over the top of those lashes just to accentuate them again, because we've gone over them a fair bit with the white. So I've got a nice sharp black pencil here. You don't have to use a pencil, you could use a marker for this or a fine liner or something like that as well. So for now I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to do the lips first. So we're going to start with Carmine Red, which is actually one of my favourite colours as well. I love that it's kind of a salmony red, a pinky, I don't know, it reminds me of sunsets. We're actually going to use this in the background for a sunset as well. So I'm going into the middle of the section of lips just to show a little bit of a dip in the middle of the lip there, and then just on each side of the lip. I'm doing a little section on the nails here. I've got the white pencil and I'm just sort of putting a line of this down the edge of each of those. So basically in the middle of the nail we're going to try and create a shine, And we're creating a shine by leaving these sections on the lips here and just going over them with the white. We're going to need to come back in with that pink red colour just to deepen that up a little bit. So I've got that carmine red. We're just going to go in and line out the lips again and just put a little bit more colour into those shadow areas. Just softening off some details now in the skin there. Just got the sienna brown and I'm just going in and deepening up that shadow area on the cross because there was a little section where it was quite white. I still think that the hand could come forward off the skin a little bit more, so I will go back in now and deepen that up. So this is the next day, and I've decided to come back in with those darker colours. I think they really need to be deepened up a bit, and they also need to be widened because they don't look like they're deep enough or wide enough. So this is the henna again. So I'm going to use some of that carmine red and just pop a little bit on the cheek area here just to put a little bit of definition, and also it gives it that little bit of a blush look. I'm using the peach to go over the top of that. So I'm also using the peach to soften off those dark shadow areas this time rather than using the Caran d'Ache blender, because I wanted to make those areas a little bit wider. So you can see now that her face has got a little bit more depth, and with those pink cheeks it just makes them sort of stand out that little bit more as well. I'm using the white just to soften off the edge again. I'm coming back in on the other side with that red colour just to deepen the other side up, just to make it a little bit more even. And I've got the peach again just to soften that side off. So my peach is actually quite flat. I hadn't sharpened the pencil, and also it's a very small pencil as well, so it was a little bit harder to show you what I was doing behind that pencil. So just softening off those areas that I've done. So you can see now there's a little bit more depth in there, and I'm quite much happier with that than I was before. It makes it look a little less flat, and it made those shadow areas a little deeper and a little bit more prominent, which makes those lighter areas pop out a little bit more as well. So I'm just going over the ones that I did down here on the hands and that as well. Just behind that bottom finger there, I think that it could be a little bit darker, so just make sure you go in and adjust those things. So I'm going to start on the headpiece here, and I'm also using this colour in the top as well. So I'm using Indanthrone or Indanthrone blue to go in and mark out all of the shadow areas. So it looks like these little pieces of material actually folded and curled under, so I'm going to put a shadow in onto the curled side so that you can see that it's actually coming up and overlapping or being overlapped by the other material. So I'm going to go in and mark out these areas first. So I'm trying to use some complementary colours through the image to make sure that it's quite even and that it's pleasing to the eye as well. So we're just going to do a sunset background with that red sort of colour in her lips and some yellows, and we're also going to do some nice yellow colours through her hair and make that look a little bit blonde there. So the blue we're going to make is more light blue than dark blue. This is just for the shadow colour. We're also going to do her clothes with this colour as well, so I'm going to go down and mark out the clothing. The little wrinkles on her clothes or her top are the same as the ones on her hood or hat or scarf. I'm not exactly sure what that is. Shawl. So we're going to make sure we go in and mark that out with this darker colour as well. So I'm still using the Indanthrone blue. So I'm using Blue Violet Lake. I actually find the blues in the Prismacolor set quite hard to blend sometimes because there's lots of different tones through them. So the Indanthrone blue's got a little bit of purple through it. So I'm using the Blue Violet Lake because obviously that's a softer, more slate sort of blue. So we're doing light pressure for all of this. I haven't done any heavy pressure yet. I'm just going in and putting in a layer over the top. So we've still got plenty of tooth coming through at the moment. So just going in with the Caribbean Sea now, just over the top of the previous colours and extending this further out. We're only going to leave a very, very slight section for the white now, and we're going to go over the top of that and have a little bit of a highlight there. So now I'm going to go over everything that I've done with the powder blue. So I'm just doing medium pressure now over the top of everything. I'm starting to now flatten off the tooth. So we're not going to have as many white spots through the middle of the paper. I'm going to go back in with the darker colour as well and just deepen up some of those shadows once we're finished, because we have really softened those off a bit now. And now I'm going to completely flatten off the tooth with the white. So going over the top of all of those colours. Now I'm going to go back in with that indanthrone or the blue, the darkest blue that we used. I'm going to go back in and mark out all of these shadow areas again, put a little bit more detail into it, and so that the shadow's not softened off as much as it is now. And we want to be able to see that the little ruffles are actually sitting off from the rest of the fabric as well and forward. So putting this dark shadow behind it's going to allow that to happen. So now I've marked it in, I'm actually going to just smudge some of this darker colour out and down a little bit, lightening up my pressure a little bit. But because the tooth of the paper is already pushed down now, I'm actually just sort of smudging the wax around. It's not actually going on very firm now because we've already pushed down that paper. So it's just sort of sliding along the top of the colour that we've already got there. So now we've got that blue violet lake, and I'm just going over and smudging out the remainder of that dark colour now into the lighter colour. So we're just sort of softening off that very edge so it doesn't look like we've just gone in and scribbled in that colour directly, you know, in a line straight over the top. So it's nice and smooth now. And we didn't use a white this time around, so it didn't sort of soften off the colour too much because the white's fairly opaque. It does really lighten off these colours, so just trying to use the previous colour there just to stop that from happening. I've got the Caribbean Sea again now, and I'm just finalising this dark edge now. I'm going to do the same on the top of her hat as well. So starting with the indanthrone blue, And just before moving to the blue violet lake, I'm just sort of smudging that colour out a little bit more as I did down the bottom, just to put a little bit more of that darker colour into the image. And then I'm going to just smudge that off with the blue violet lake. So we really wanted to keep the depth in there, that's why we didn't use the white. So just going in and finishing off those sections now. Okay, so now we're going back over with the Caribbean Sea and just finishing that off. So I wanted to sort of blend that out a little bit further and make sure it was nice and soft into that lighter colour. So now you can see it's a lot richer in those deeper shadow areas, which sort of creates a little bit of depth and character through there. Just got a little bit of powder blue just for the very edge bit there. So I just wanted to deepen up the colour in her nails. So I've got the carmine red again, and I'm just going to put a line on either side or edge of those nails, just to pop that colour in a little bit more. So I just wanted to start on the background first before I did the hair. So I'm starting with some canary yellow first for the little sun section here. I'm just going to go into this area and just sort of spread that around the outside of that circle as well, just to give it a little bit of a glow. So I've grabbed some permanent red and I've just gone over the background here at the top. There's some lines through there, so I've left one side or one part of it. I'll do the carmine red, and this one I'm doing permanent red. Now I did have a little trouble with my hands by this stage, so I didn't actually blend the background in nice and smooth. I'm just going to use some Zest It just to blend off that with a bit of a brush, just to soften off the tooth so that you can't see that white paper through it. So on the other side of the lines there, I'm going to use the carmine red. You could also mix some blues through here. It wouldn't really matter in this section because it's nicely textured like this or has that pattern through. You could kind of mix it up a little bit and put a little bit of red, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of blue, or light blue or dark blue. So it's up to you what you would do there. I just picked the pinky red color because I liked how it makes it look a little bit like a sunset. So I've just grabbed the canary yellow again, and I'm going to go over everything with this color. I just wanted to put a little bit more pigment down because we are going to be using the Zest It. You could use any sort of solvent that you would like to use here. You don't have to use Zest It. You could also use pastels instead of pencils. So there's lots of different ways that you could do this. Today's purpose wasn't to actually show you guys a background. It was really just to show you those flowers at the start there and just the finished image. So I do apologize for not being able to sort of complete that fully with my limited hand motions there, but I did a lot of pencil this week, so yeah, it was really hard for me. So this was my next best thing. So just to help with keeping the colour down in that spot, I'm using the colourless blender, the full blender by Caran. You could use any blender that you wanted here. In fact, you don't even have to use a blender. You could just go straight for the Zest It if you'd like. I do find that this just helps to give me a little bit more to push around the page once I do put the Zest It on to blend it around. So I've just grabbed a flat brush. It is fairly large, and I'm going to put on a little bit of the Zest It. So I'm just dipping it in, and I just wipe the excess off on a cotton pad before I go and put it on the page. I don't want it to soak the page up. I just want it to push that wax around the edges of the page. So you can see how it's just softening off the tooth, so you can't see the white underneath. So there's still a little bit of texture through the sky, but I've never actually looked at the sky and saw a smooth blanket of colour. It's always sort of, you know, different colours throughout. So I was quite happy with how this one turned out. And I think the yellow did help to sort of make it all smooth in together and give that transition nice. So I've just made sure that's dried off a bit, and I've come back in now with some spring green. I wanted to bring some of the colour that's in the image into the background here, so I'm just using that. I'm doing a medium pressure over the whole background area here. I'm going to soften that off with the chartreuse as well. So I've got the chartreuse, and I'm just going to go in with firm pressure and cover up the rest of the tooth. So this is only a small area, so it's not too bad putting pressure down in that little bit of an area there. You could do any colour here in the background. You could have gone for a darker green if you'd wanted to. Anything like that would do. Now I'm going to use a little bit just to go over the tooth that was still showing through there on that top section with the carmine red, and I'm also going to do this in this little heart here on her head. Half the side I've actually put pressure down and left that firm, and then I've gone over it with the white, so we've still got a difference between a light and a dark side there. I will go in at the end with the white gel pen and put a little bit of a little sparkly thing on there as well to show that it's sort of shiny. So we're doing the hair now. I'm using burnt ochre for the shadow areas. I'm just going to flick this colour out towards the middle of the hair to create a bit of a highlight in the middle section so that it looks shiny. We do a dark colour on the top and the bottom of each section of hair. So if you'd like to see a little bit more on hair, I do have some more in-depth videos on hair. I will specifically link one that is to the whole video is just hair and how to do hair, so I will link that in the description as well there for you. So I'm just going to go in and fill out this color. So we're actually doing blonde hair, so we want to put a little bit of brown in there for our shadow, and then we're going to come in with some yellows. So I'm going to do the exact same thing with the Spanish orange, and I'm going to make sure I leave that little section in the middle of each of those parts of hair for the lightest colour. So I'm going to use a canary yellow because we've used that through the rest of the image, so it kind of brings it all in together and sort of marries it all in together, I guess. We're going to use some purples for the rest of the headband thing as well, so that we can sort of bring in those flower colours into her hairpiece too. So I missed the front fringe bit there. I'll just fill that out. So with the Spanish orange and the canary yellow, I'm going to go in with the burnt ochre just to darken up some of those sections as well, because I didn't put full pressure in and I just wanted to have a little bit deeper in those shadow areas. So I'm just using that Spanish orange up the top here. I'm just putting it to one side of each of those little sections there, so the left side of them, just put a little bit of shadow in. I'm going to go over it with the canary yellow. I may need to put a little bit of that burnt ochre in there just to deepen them up a little bit and put a little bit more shadow behind those feather things in the hair there. So that's the burnt ochre. So just creating a little bit of depth so that they look like they're separated, I guess, and sitting apart from each other. and that's the Spanish orange again there. Smudged a little bit of a blue in there. I probably should have done that one first. So I've got the mahogany red here, and I'm going in and marking out all of the shadow areas. So I've just gone down the middle vein of this feather thing in her hair here, and just sort of marking out some of the shadow areas with that. We're actually going to make these purple, so we're going to use some of the purples to come in and do those. I've got the burnt ochre for the eyebrows. Got Dahlia purple, there it is, I finally pulled it out. So I've got the Dahlia purple now, and I'm going over the top of the mahogany red with that. And we're going to use some of that mulberry again. So I've just used light pressure, just going over the top of the darker middle sections and extending this out towards the white area. We're going to use a lavender to finish that off. So I'm just going to use firm pressure and go in and soften off the tooth there over the top of the darker colours and also that white area that was left. And just softening off the tooth and lightening up those very light areas with the white now. Also down the middle vein there, I'm just going to put a little bit of this down the middle just to separate it from each side. So now we've brought in the colour of the flowers into the headpiece as well, so that it sort of blends in nicely together and it all marries up together. So on the necklace down the bottom there, I'm going to put that blue so that it sort of is a little bit different to these hair pieces. I'm using the Dahlia purple now just to go in and mark out. There was some little detail on these leaf things here, so I've just gone around those details and also into the shadow areas of it, the overlapping parts. So I'm just marking that in now just to deepen them up a little bit and make them look a little bit more defined. So just finishing off the last finishing touches, I've got the Indian Throne blue, and I'm just going in and marking out some darker colour here on this necklace piece. Just kind of roughly marking it in. Using the Blue Violet Lake to go over the top of that, and then I've got the Caribbean Sea at the end, so just going into that. I'm going to use a little bit of that Dahlia purple on the left side there and in that jewel there, just to create a little bit of colour difference between the jewel and the necklace, using white to blend that out. So the last section that we're going to do is the white gel pen, and I'm just going to use it to create a little bit of contrast on the image, marking out some shiny sections there and just making them pop out from all the rest. So just doing the middle of the flowers there, just a tiny line through there just to make them stand out a little bit more as well, because we did go over them a fair bit with the other colours. And that's all that I'm going to do for this one. So I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. It was really nice to be able to do this one and finally finish it for you. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask, and thank you so much for joining the Jenny Luan book launch event. So guys, if you haven't subscribed already, please do so, and make sure that you click on the little notification bell if you want to get notifications when I upload new videos. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook and Vero. Bye guys, have a great day.